It's time to get back to the issues that matter. Let's get back to the Roland Martin Show.
All right, folks, in just a moment, we're going to talk to a couple of guests about organization Learning Heroes. We started last week, and they have this initiative. That provides resources to parents, students, and others when it comes to the issue of education. And what we are finding, what we are discovering, is that a lot of parents have one view of their child. But then there's a reality. Let me say it again. They have one view of their child in education that does not represent reality. You've got like 90% of these parents, black parents, believe their child is reading on grade level. But numbers don't lie. They're not. They're not even coming close at all. And so we're dealing with this whole issue of creating partnerships between parents, teachers, and communities for student success. So we're going to talk with Joshua Dubois, CEO of Values Partnerships. They are working with Learning Heroes on engaging the black community. And we'll talk with Jacquelyn Dortch, who is with Stand for Children. They run the family engagement program across the country called Stand University for Parents, called Stand Up. It is an 8-week curriculum that parents attend in partnership with the school. It's about strengthening the bond between families and schools to improve academic performance. They've had more than 2,000 parents come through their program since they began, largely African American and Latino. And again, what we are dealing with are parents having this just one view of their child and their education and the others. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. We're having some issues here with the phone lines, and so I'm going to take Joshua, then I'm going to go to Jackie. In the commercial break, they're going to figure this thing out. So let me go to Joshua first. Joshua, first of all,
Roland.
Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me.
One of the things that I continue to hear from people over and over and over again is that parents just say that they are sort of out of the loop. You know, they think one thing is happening with their kids, and, you know, then all of a sudden they come up against reality and it's something else.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a huge problem. And when you think about it, I can't think of any more old school way to communicate than the way that we currently communicate with parents. And that's really through report cards and grades and test scores. I mean, how are you supposed to get a good picture of what's happening with your kids through a piece of paper that goes home every 6 weeks or 9 weeks? You know, this is the communication age. The way, and you know this better than anyone, Roland, the way people are consuming information is just different these days. They're consuming it on Facebook. They're consuming it on text messages, online, at church. And so I think we've got to innovate in the way that we communicate to parents. Schools and teachers will have to use some of these new resources to give parents a better picture. And that's what Learning Heroes is really trying to do. Folks can go to bealearninghero.org and get a better sense of how to even figure out how your kids are doing. Because you're right, man, there is a huge gap. 90% of our parents think that everything is going fine. when it comes to reading at grade level. But we know the numbers are more around 30%. That's what this new data is finding. And we've got to close that gap. And it starts with the way that we bring parents into the system and we communicate with parents.
One of the things that also jumps out is that, and I think somehow, Josh, we got to deal with this here. You also got parents who are unprepared to help their kids.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, man, I remember that myself. You know, at some point you hit a wall. You know, I'm in trigonometry and pre-calc in high school, and, you know, if I'm at my grandmother's house, she's a brilliant woman, but that may not be her strong suit, right? You know, and so we've got to figure out how to equip parents with information, but also how to connect kids to tutors and other resources when parents hit a wall themselves. And I think we got to make information a little bit easier for parents to consume. You know, why aren't we sending text messages or video updates on our kids rather than old school report cards that nobody understands how to read? But you're right, man. Part of this starts with the parents.
When we talk about improving outcomes, talking about getting our kids to learn, getting them to really understand what can make them be a better student. What are the couple of things that just jump off the top when you talk about how a parent can be a difference maker immediately?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Roland. The line went out just a bit there.
So that is a couple of basic things.
Basic things
that a parent can do today.
One, go to BeALearningHero.org and download something called the Readiness Roadmap. Again, it's BeALearningHero.org. Download the Readiness Roadmap, and that will give you a snapshot of where your kid needs to be and how you can understand where they are right now. So that's the first thing. The second thing is ask questions. You know, if things seem too complicated or complex or it don't make sense, then you gotta ask questions, right? You know, there's probably a reason why it doesn't make sense. And so, you know, taking the time to say, you know, I see this C- on the report card, but my son or my daughter seems to think that they're doing, you know, that they're doing better than that. What's the difference here? What's the gap? Third, I would say, don't assume that everything is just okay. I think part of the problem that we confront, particularly as African American parents, is we think that, you know, because we may not have another school to send our children to, then we just have to accept the status quo and assume that everything is going to be okay. But the reality is, unless we put our hand on that wheel, it may not be okay. And so don't just assume that everything is okay. Go up to that school and have a conversation. I remember when my mother, before she married my stepfather, was a single parent in Nashville, Tennessee, making around $20,000 a year, working at a nonprofit. And it was tough for her to take a couple hours off in the middle of the day and go down to my school and check on things. But she knew that was one of the most important things that she could do, and she didn't assume that everything was okay. And so I think that was on parents. You know, the school district.
Hey, Joshua, hold on one second. Hold on one second. I got to go to a break.
It's time to get back to the issues that matter. Let's get back to the Roland Martin Show.
So, Jacquelyn, I want to pull you up right now. Jacquelyn Dortch is with Stand for Children, and they run the family engagement program, Stand University for Parents. So, Jacquelyn, so tell us exactly what does Stand University for Parents do?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, Stand for Children is an organizing and advocacy organization, and so we seek to rally parents together to fight for quality education. And one of the components that we found significantly important to do that is to find a way in which to educate parents. And so Stand University for Parents, as you indicated earlier, is an 8-week parent engagement program that we provide right in the community schools. And so we go right into the communities where parents are. They're bringing their children to school every day, and so we run the classes in the school. The program is really designed to be quality family engagement. which means that any family engagement, if it does not lead to the academic success of the students, so donuts with dads and muffins with moms, those are all nice ways to get parents involved in the school, but ultimately it needs to lead to academic success for the student. What I like about our program that's really innovative is it's really empowering. It takes parents from theory to action. So one of the things you mentioned earlier is what can parents do right now to begin to take an active role in their children's education? The first lesson begins with why you, and why now? Why should parents get involved right now? And we do a very, very simple thing in the class. We ask parents, who are you raising? That very statement, that one little segment of who are you raising, is really what builds the interest in parents and gets them really thinking about who am I raising and how do I get involved in my children's education. So that first class, where's your child? Is your child in the third grade? Is your child on third grade reading level? Is your child up to par? Begins to get parents to question and ask themselves where their children really are and what steps they can take to find out exactly how they can make sure that their children are on track. The class culminates in parents really understanding that college is a reality for their children. And everything that they do right now, building that bridge from the living room to the classroom, is making sure that their child have access to go to college.
Okay, so we talk about these 8 weeks, and so take us through. Is it once a week, twice a week? What is it?
So it's once a week for 90 minutes. Again, the first class is Why You, Why Now, just getting parents in tune with the fact that they are their child's first and most important teacher. And so the second class is your child's academic profile. This is where we have the parents actually bring in their child's academic record, their report card, and we help them to read it. One of the things that we've learned, Roland, is that a lot of times parents don't understand the jargon and the acronyms and all the language that we use when we're defining our children. What's an IEP? What's a multidisciplinary staffing? And so a lot of times parents come in and they participate in things, but they really don't know what they're participating in. And so this class really helps them to understand the jargon and the acronyms and all the things that are used to describe their students' performance. Then we talk about developing a successful student. So developing your child holistically, so around academics, their behavior, accepting responsibility for their behavior. But more importantly, this class focuses on parents taking responsibility for building a relationship and a partnership with their teachers, which leads into the next class is how to build that successful partnership. What is a parent-teacher conference? What communication protocols have you set up with your teacher? Are you checking your kid's backpack? We devalue the value of the backpack. One of the greatest forms of communication between parents and teachers is to simply look in that backpack. Is there a homework folder? Is there a parent communication folder? You know, what types of information can you share back and forth with your teacher? And what is significant for your teacher to know about your child? So communication is two ways. Then we talk about getting your child on track to college. What does it mean to make sure that your child is on track to college, even in kindergarten? Where should your child be? Where should your child be at third grade? And the class culminates with how do you stay involved in your children's education? Sometimes we think once our kids go to high school, our job is done. How do you prepare your child for college, and then how do you prepare them to be a responsible student? What I like about this class is by the time we get to that final class, Roland, parents are chomping at the bit and asking for more. So not only do they complete and graduate from this program, they actually become educational advocates and stay on as members of our organization and continue to fight this issue of quality education on a bigger scale.
Well, I think one of the issues that I think happens is, and I've heard this, and I've literally heard parents say this, and I think that's what's unfortunate. You have parents who might be of this opinion that, you know what, look, I did my job. It's time for school. Now, y'all got it, 8 hours a day. But the reality is education has to be, I call it 24-hour boot camp. My wife and I, we raised 6 of my nieces, and yes, they had homework. Yes, they had lessons there. But we had to be as equally as aggressive at home about their education as they were in school.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And one of the ways that we kind of push that point, Roland, is we say to parents, once you give birth to a child, you get a new title, and your title is parent. Once your child enters the school system, they have a new title, and that title is student. And it is your job to make sure that they live up to that title. You don't just drop them off for 10 months with a stranger. One of the exercises that I did when I was teaching the class, I asked all the parents, hold up your cell phones, and I told them to tell me how many applications they had on their phone, what, Facebook app, Twitter app. I said, now you have your child in a turnaround school, AUSL school. What does AUSL stand for? And neither of the parents could tell me. I said, you're dropping your kids off to a school for 10 months, putting them in the hands of an administration and a teacher, and you don't even know what the school stands for, what their values are, what you can expect. And I gave them homework to go back and research, and I learned more than I ever wanted to know. But the point is, when people are empowered through education, they love their kids. These parents love their kids, and when you open the doors to the schools and give them an opportunity to learn and be a partner, they'll come in. And we've seen, as you said, we've had over 2,000 people graduate from our program, and more than 3,000 have attended at least one class. And so we continue to see parents that once they're empowered through education and through knowledge, they want to be involved. They take a more active role, and ultimately we see that their children begin to excel.
Folks, we're talking with Jacquelyn Dortch of Stand Up and Stand for Children. And they are about, again, those partnerships with parents as well as schools. You just heard her say their 8-week program, they've had more than 2,000 parents go through. First of all, what is your center in terms of where you're located? Where are you based, and how many different markets are you in?
So we don't have a center for our Stand University for Parents. We actually deliver the program in the individual schools. And so we have, to date, we're here in Chicago. We've been in more than 20 schools in Chicago, and we are running our program across various different states. We are a national organization in 11 different states, and so our program has been implemented in 9 states and 13 cities. So Illinois, Indiana, Oregon, we've been across our network.
So I got somebody who's listening in, and this is what I always hear, and it drives me crazy. Well, Roland, a lot of these parents, they don't have time. They work in 2 jobs. They don't have time to do all this sort of stuff like this. What do you say when you hear those excuses?
Well, and so excuses, some of it is urban legend, some of it is reality. There are parents that are out here working 2 jobs and can't do it. And I'll give you an example. We had a student who the teacher could not reach the parent. Well, by having a parent advocate in the school reach out to the parent, we found out that the parent was a 68-year-old great-grandmother, 68-year-old great-grandmother raising a 7-year-old child, and had another smaller child at home and a 19-year-old grandchild that was helping her. And Grandma was indeed working 2 jobs. She was working the night shift and then working until 3 o'clock the next day. The parent advocate reached out to her and found out that there was a neighbor that she was entrusting to bring the child to school every day. So they set up protocols where this neighbor could receive information, but more importantly, that teacher and that parent set up a date and time when they would talk each week on Sunday about what was coming up for that child and what that grandparent needs to be involved in. So a lot of times we don't have the traditional 2-parent households where there's mom and dad. There's great-grandmothers, grandmothers, people who are not tech-savvy, so they can't get on the Internet and check the child's grades. We have aunts, uncles, foster parents. By reaching out and finding out the family dynamics in their home and coming up with alternative communication strategies, this child was able to get the information that he needed to succeed. And more importantly, he became more enthusiastic about school because grandma and teacher now had a protocol for sharing information that fit into grandmother's schedule, but also was supportive of the child.
844-736-7474, 844-736-7474. Love to hear your got any questions. Love to get them right now. We're talking education. This is about empowering, saving our kids. Because, folks, education is the key. Jacquelyn, hold tight 1 second. We'll pick up on this conversation when we come back right here on the Roland Martin Show. Back in a moment.
It's time to get back to the issues that matter. Let's get back to the Roland Martin Show.
Welcome back to the Roland Martin Show. We're talking education with partnership with Learning Heroes. You can follow them at Be a Learning Hero on Twitter. And my guest is Jacquelyn Dortch. She is with Stand Up. And they are doing, it's all about parental engagement. And Jacquelyn, let me ask you this question here. What is the most common complaints you hear from parents when it comes to being connected with the education of their children?
That they have not been allowed access to the schools. You know, schools don't want us in there. They don't want us asking questions. And so parents have retreated to, you know, I'm not welcome there. So they're intimidated about going in and asking questions. Or I only hear from the school when my child is doing something bad. Why didn't anyone tell me that my child was not on grade level? You know, why didn't anyone tell me that my child wasn't succeeding? So a lot of times parents feel as if they are only communicated with when their children are doing something out of order. And so this idea of building partnerships with the schools is just like a new concept, like you guys are working together. But once it's introduced and once the schools open their doors and parents feel as if they are partners, it is very successful. And again, the ultimate result is that children, you see the success in the children.
So when parents are saying that, that's all the time I hear, what are some of the other ways to convince, not convince, but to get schools to understand how they need to engage parents? Because, look, you got more tools than you ever have before. And so no longer is it all about there has to be this face-to-face connection. Right.
So let me tell you, we were working at a school in Inglewood. I don't know if you're familiar with Inglewood in Chicago. Very challenging neighborhood, a lot of violence. And so we went into work in the school, and actually the principal was very jaded, like, okay, you guys can come in and try to do what you want to do. Good luck. These parents are not going to show up. They're not going to participate. They're not going to be involved. So my pitch, Roland, when I stood out in front of the school to invite the parents who were dropping their kids off in their pajamas, so that said to me, this is a person that's going back home. They're still in their pajamas, dropping their kids off in pajamas. And I said to them, look, I'm here to tell you how you can make sure that your child goes to college and not prison. I'm here to tell you that there is a way to make sure that your child has a way to escape the circumstance here. But they say you're not interested. So that speech right there to parents, they say you're not interested, made those parents say, who is they? Who are the people that say you're not interested? I said, they're community members. There's a principal here that says you guys are not interested. I'm having this meeting on Thursday. Your principal's going to be here. She needs your support and participation to make this school safe and to make sure that our children succeed. But there's a belief here that you're not going to show up. Well, the parents showed up. One of the things that makes this idea of this being successful is going into the schools ahead of time and building a relationship with that principal and saying, if you open your doors, we'll get them in here. And then once we get them in here, if you come and speak to them in a collaborative way, like this is what I need. So one of the unique things about our program is it's not just us coming in and telling parents what it means to be involved in their children's education. The principal and the teachers have to take an active role in delivering the curriculum. That builds that collaborative partnership right there. Here's where we are, parents. Here's where we are going, and here's how I need you to help me get there. That begins to change the dynamics in the school and open the door, and they see the principal in a non-threatening, I'm not calling you because your child did something. I'm calling you because I'm saying I need your help. I need you in my school. And by working in that school, at that time, there was only one parent that ever volunteered and participated in anything. And today, they have a strong parent council. They have a strong group of parents who come together and help the principal make decisions about the school. But it was just the idea of that principal being willing, even though she was jaded, to open her door and say, I'll try it. And so once you have that administration built from the inside out, then it begins to work. The parents and the principals work together.
Folks, we're chatting with Jacquelyn Dortch with the organization Stand for Children. They run a family engagement program across the country. And Jacquelyn, you were raised in Chicago on the west side, and you had teenage parents.
Yeah.
Take us through that experience, how it informs what you do now.
So you're absolutely right. I was born and raised on the west side of Chicago in historical K-Town. At the age of 9, we moved to the Austin community right across the street from Oak Park, thinking we were taking a step up, only to find out that my neighborhood school was overcrowded. So I was in the fourth grade having school in a trailer. There wasn't enough books, and so papers and things were being Xeroxed and replaced with books. But more than anything, there was just fights every day. So the teacher was just a referee every day. We were in this hot trailer. And so there was a community advocate that came and knocked on my parents' door. My mother is 15 years older than me, and my father is 18 years older than me, came and knocked on my parents' door and said, hey, the mayor has this new initiative where your children can be bused to a quality school. It'll be a 1-hour ride every day. They'll have breakfast on the bus, but more importantly, they'll have access to a quality education. It was my parents making that decision, and we were some of the only ones that, from my particular block, who took advantage of this. And so my parents making that decision to send us to a quality school is where a culture of learning was established in us. The idea of going to college, we had never talked about going to college in my previous school, so the idea of going to college became realistic. And so exposing me and giving me this opportunity to be educated in a culture of learning really began to open the door, and I began to see that there were greater opportunities outside of my community than falling into the circumstances that my parents found themselves in. But more importantly, my mother also went back to school and became a nurse. My father also went back to school, so we were not only educated, my parents were inspired to continue their education and to rise above their circumstances. And so because of that, that is why I'm here today, because my parents took advantage when somebody knocked on the door and said there's a better way. And school became our refuge. There was nothing more important in my household than us being educated and going to school. And so we were the children that we would have to go to school with an IV. We had perfect attendance. My parents truly, truly believed that education was our way out of our circumstance. And being the only girl, my mother was destined that I would not be a teenage parent, and certainly I was not.
Folks, we're talking with Jacquelyn Dortch with Stand for Children. They are about empowering parents when it comes to the education of their children. And, you know, just one of the things that I think happens, Jacquelyn, is that when we talk about what's going on in our school, one of the things that happens is that we were operating in this blame game. Well, whose fault is it? Is it the teachers? Is it this person? Is it that person? When the bottom line is we have what I call a collective failure. And I think one of the things that trips me out is people will say, well, Roland, you can't blame the parents. You can't blame the child. And I say, that's BS. Everybody has a role to play, and if you're not playing your role, then you should accept some of the blame.
I would agree with that. One of the things that we emphasize in our stand-up curriculum, we talk about the role of the teacher. We talk about the role of the parent, and we talk about the role of the student. That's in our Lesson 3, Developing a Successful Student. We carefully lay out everybody's responsibility and their contributions that they have to make to making sure that their child is educated. So you're absolutely right. No one is remiss in their responsibility. And when children are not succeeding, it is easy for parents to take the easy way out and say, oh, it's the teacher's fault. But part of the curriculum teaches parents how to have a productive conversation with the child's teacher. We talk about this idea of there should be no educational surprises. You shouldn't get to the end of 8th grade and find out your child is not graduating. Who's responsible for that? Everybody's responsible for that, but more importantly, you are the parent. And so we really emphasize that the parents are the child's first and most important teacher. And if you're not seeking that information, if you're not finding out where your child needs to be and laying a path for their future, then yes, you are accountable as well.
Folks, we're talking education on the Roland Martin Show. Number to call is 844-736-7474, 836-7474. If you have any questions for Jacquelyn. Challenging students. That, to me also, Jacquelyn, is something that I think has to happen. You got to challenge students.
I agree. And so we get so caught up on children who are falling behind. There are also children who act out in school because they're bored. because children need access to a higher level of education. So I think that children definitely have to be challenged all the way around to be a productive student, but also to be a responsible citizen. And again, that's one of the things that I really like about our curriculum. It talks about the child in an academic, holistic sense. It talks about their behavior. It talks about them accepting responsibility. One of the exercises that we went through with one of the parents in the class, she's like, the parent said, everybody is not an A, B student. And I said, and that may be true, but do you know why your child is a C student? Is it because he's a poor test taker? Is it because your child doesn't study? Is it because your child doesn't remember information, doesn't, retain information? If your child is a C student, don't just accept that. Find out why. When we drive our cars, if there's a knocking noise in our car, but it's still running, we still want to know why it's knocking. And so just that little context of parents, find out why. Put some context behind it. My child is a C student because they're not good in math.
Right.
So they need some additional support.
Hold tight 1 second. Hold on 1 second. I got to go to this break. I'll be back, folks, with our final segment, talking education with Jacquelyn Dortch of Stand for Children, right here on the Roland Martin Show.
It's time to get back to the issues that matter. Let's get back to the Roland Martin Show.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Roland Martin Show, 844-736-7474. We're chatting with Jacquelyn Dortch. She, of course, is with Stand for Children. And one of the things that I find to be interesting, Jacquelyn, is that when we talk about just how we can change things, I've learned that even small, basic things can literally change a child's trajectory when it comes to education, when it comes to what happens in the classroom.
I completely agree. I mean, we've seen the simple things that we take for granted. Like even my story, Roland, there was no magic to the school that I went to, except I had books. I had things that the things that you think your child is going to get when they go to school. I had books, and I had teachers invested in me learning. I had teachers who knew I lived an hour away and that would call my parents and let my parents know what was going on in school. I had a school that reached out to my parents knowing that they were an hour away that said, hey, we'll send a bus car so you can get out here and come and pick up your child's report card. We'll carpool. We had people in the community that would let us stay at their homes when there was something happening after school. And so even in the schools that we work in, just the children seeing their parents show up to school, it's so beautiful to see children police their parents and say, Mom, you have class tonight. You have Stand University for parents tonight. And just that little indication that their parents are taking this step to be involved in their education, we've just seen the kids grow and advance tremendously. I just want to share this one story about a young mother who had 3 boys in the school. And she decided to join the class because she was at her wit's end with her children. They were acting out. They were in the 3rd and the 4th grade, and she didn't know what else to do. She joined the class along with her current husband. Well, they were in a custody dispute. And so the kids were acting out because I'm at Dad's, and he's saying bad things about Mom, and then I'm with Mom and stepdad, and this is happening. Well, what you could do at home and how your home environment impacts their ability to learn. They participated, graduated in the course, went to court, told the judge, look, we're parent advocates. We graduated from this program. We know what to do for our children. That husband joined the class. All 3 of them became graduates of Stand University for Parents, and because they got on the same page and decided to come together and parent those children academically, both of those boys went from being D, F students to B, C students. Their behavior improved and everything. So just that small gesture of joining a class and learning what it means to parent your kids in the school and outside of the school and the impact of what's going on in your home has your children in school, we saw significant improvement in those children.
Wow. I mean, and that's what it's all about. I mean, and see, one of the things that when you talk about parental involvement, I gave a sermon on I gave a sermon on Sunday, and I said that, when I was in school, all of the teachers knew my parents.
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't like every night. No. All of them knew. Every single one. So when the phone call was made, it wasn't like it was an introduction. They knew exactly who Mr. Martin was and Mrs. Martin was.
Absolutely. And one of the ways that we teach even teachers on how to build those relationships with parents, don't just wait until the child is doing something bad. If you really want a child to grow and advance, make those positive phone calls home. Let that phone ring sometime, and it's not you saying that your child acted out, but saying, hey, I just want to congratulate, Roland for having a great week this week. He turned in all of his homework, and he did a great job in class. That one little positive phone call home to that parent, and that parent saying, your teacher called me and she praised you. I mean, I can't even put it into words how far that goes for a child that's been struggling in school. Simple things like putting your child's homework or their good grades on your refrigerator, all those simple things that our parents used to do. I know our parents did it. Put our grades on the refrigerator. They shared them with other people. All those little things that we used to do, we need to get back to that, because those are the things that encourage kids and make them want to succeed.
Folks, we're talking about education. We're talking about what's happening with our children with Jacquelyn Dortch. She is with Stand for Children. They really are about helping parents build those relationships. And I say this, I say it all the time, because one of the things that my wife and I have done with my nieces, and that is that we had this, what I call this 24/7 boot camp mentality, where we said every waking moment is a learning opportunity. So we didn't see this just as, well, it's all up to the school. We said, no, we have to be just as vigilant in their education as we are what happens in those school hours.
Absolutely, and that's some of the work that we're doing now, Roland, in the summer months, because parents think this is vacation. Oh, I'm so glad school is out. My child is, on break. So we're really pushing this idea of summer learning and explaining to parents the significant impact of summer learning loss has on their students. And so across our network, we have a number of our affiliates that are engaged in working with schools to make sure that children continue to learn even throughout the summer. And so I agree with you. Every waking moment is a learning moment. And we go right back to our theme and our lesson. Your child has a new title, and that title is student. And that means that they are continuously, you don't get to take a break from being a parent. They shouldn't get to take a break from being a student. They are continuously learning. And then personally, I am, too, a parent. I have a college senior, and I have an 8th grader and a 6th grader. And we just ordered our books from Amazon, and we're getting ready to engage our summer learning. They have to participate in 3 to 4 hours of summer enrichment every day, and then we do a fun activity. So I'm not just a person that sells this. I actually practice it as well.
Folks, now where can folks get more information and more details?
Absolutely. You can go for standforchildren.org. Again, we're in 11 different states, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Washington, Oregon, Massachusetts. So you can look up STAN, and all of our cities are listed there, and you will find a link to our family engagement. You can get information there, but you can get overall information about our organization. We are in the midst of celebrating 20 years of being educational advocates. We have been in this fight and in this battle for a long time, and one step at a time, one small victory at a time, we are making a difference, and we are seeing that the education system is improving in various communities for various students because of our efforts, but more importantly, because of the efforts of the parents who've decided that, yes, I'm going to stand up, show up, and speak up and let you know that I love my child and I want to be engaged and involved in my children's education. And to the schools, the teachers, the administrators that have opened their doors to allow parents to come in, we just want to, thank you for this opportunity. And, again, we are 20 years in the making, 20 years in counting, and we're going to continue this fight until everybody can walk out of their front door and walk into a quality institution of education.
All right, Jacquelyn Dortch, thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Roland, for having me.
All right. Gladys in South Carolina, I think she's got a question. Gladys, go ahead.
North Carolina.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I'm calling because I'm a volunteer at the school. And I see some of the same things going on in the school here in North Carolina, that has been spoken about over this. I want to know what is it and where and how do I get information regarding what I'm hearing about in the 11 other states that she mentioned. How do I get it here in a little town called Garner, North Carolina?
Okay. Well, one of the things you could do is when you talk about one thing that can help is go to Learning Heroes. That is, they've got lots of information that can assist you. Actually, the site is called bealearninghero.org. bealearninghero.org. And so they got lots of information there. That's all you got to do. Okay?
Okay.
All right, cool. Thanks a bunch. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. All right, folks. Again, one of the reasons why we talk so much about education, I have long said that is the great equalizer. That is what really puts us in a better position in our life. And so let's never forget that.
It's time to bring the fun with one of the most thought-provoking radio shows on the airwaves today. It's the show that's relevant to the people. It's the show that's honest, balanced, and unapologetically black. It's time for the Roland Martin Show.